Part 96. After the divorce, the ex-wife became a creditor. Author, Ahuan. Chapter 959. When he arrived at Lao Gu's house, he smiled at Lao Gu at the door, and then shouted loudly. Ouch! Dad Gu, has your house changed? Is it renovated, or did your sister who fell in love with you come over to clean you that day? These floor tiles look like mirrors. This living room, this dining room, wow, it's true. Man, you still need to live with a woman. Lao Gu glared at Han Qian. At this time, Li Yelai walked out of the bathroom. Han Qian's mouth suddenly opened up. He glanced at Li Yelai and then at Lao Gu, then turned around and left, muttering in a low voice. Your way of attacking your ex-wife's best friend is not very good. This is not something I can see. As soon as he opened his legs, Lao Gu's hand grabbed the back of his collar. Li Yelai rushed forward and slapped Han Qian on the head. The sound is crisp. Han Qian felt like stars were appearing in front of his eyes. Li Yelai said angrily. You're stupid. Can you please cover your mouth? Han Qian covered his head and muttered softly. He's not married, you're not married, what the hell? After saying that, he turned to look at Lao Gu. Dad Gu. Has that young lady contacted you? I recently took An to the capital to establish a relationship under your banner and we met her. Lao Gu chuckled. Li Yelai's hand had already pinched Han Qian's face, and she gritted her teeth. Little Han Qian. You and Qinghu are sure to get the certificate. I am also half your elder. I must teach you what the rules are today. Come here. It hurts. It hurts. Auntie, please be gentle. I think when I go back to Binhai today, Qinghu will ask me again when he sees my face. You can't go back. In fact, Han Qian didn't want to go back, he just wanted to find an excuse not to be dealt with. Pity. Han Qian always felt that his elders had violent tendencies, and he was the only one who piqued him. Sitting on the sofa, Li Yelai's slaps fell like raindrops. Han Qian struggled to defend and shouted loudly. Auntie! It's not my fault. A few days ago, his house was able to draw a map. Now it suddenly becomes spotless. He cleans the room. It's harder than a mouse working as an escort for a cat. Li Yelai gasped in anger, turned to look at Lao Gu, and frowned. Are you so used to it? Lao Gu sat on the sofa and smoked a cigarette, laughing. Look carefully, Yelai, you are indeed beautiful. After saying these words, Han Qian stood up, clasped his fists with both hands, and bowed. I wish you a long life together. Farewell. As soon as he said that, he ran away, but this time he was caught by Lao Gu and threw him on the sofa. The bedroom door opened, and Zhou Hui, wearing pajamas, walked out of the room, glanced at Lao Gu, and frowned. How did you learn to be as glib as this little brat? Han Qian glanced at Zhou Hui, then at Li Yelai, and then at Lao Gu. The guy's face became ambiguous, and he leaned closer to Lao Gu and whispered. Does your back hurt? Lao Gu frowned slightly. When he didn't respond, Han Qian whispered again. Are the three of us living together now? I'm so carefree and I don't get this kind of treatment. This time, not only Lao Gu understood, but Zhou Hui and Li Yelai also understood. A threesome fight? It was Han Qian who was beaten. About 10 minutes later, Han Qian lay motionless on the sofa. Li Yelai snorted and pulled Zhou Hui to buy groceries. This little brat has good cooking skills. The two women left, and Lao Gu threw Han Qian a piece of cake. A cigar. Taste it? Looking at the thin cigar in front of him, Han Qian sat up and stretched his muscles. Lao Gu slapped him twice, and the two female elders slapped him in the face. The slaps were not painful enough, they were just for show. He picked up the cigar and smelled it, then whispered. It seems like this thing isn't popular in the market, right? Lao Gu nodded, narrowed his eyes, and said softly. This cigarette is very special. Even in the capital, I can only be laughed at by others. Without my apology, this cigarette really can't reach my department. Han Qian looked at the cigar and lowered his head. Tobacco grade too low. Lao Gu curled his lips and said calmly. It's because I'm not qualified. Feng Lun made the Yamanman very embarrassed. The credit for being imprisoned in the end is attributed to me. Although some guys say they don't care about these things, they still think about it in their hearts. Throw me a box and ask your mother Joe to give you the 2 special diplomatic items later, so don't be in a hurry to return to Binhai. Han Qian took 2 puffs of cigarette and whispered. This herbal smell, Dad Gu, let me ask you again, will I really not have a negative impact on you? We opened the skylight and talked about lighting. I know clearly that we have not known each other for a long time. My status in Binhai seems to be quite impressive, but I am not even a fly in your eyes. I also have selfish motives regarding the matter between you and Mother Joe, and your behavior makes me very uneasy. Lao Gu half opened his eyes and smiled. Perhaps it's a matter of eye contact, or maybe it's because of your responsible attitude towards the people around you. It's pleasing to the eye. The other thing is your self-knowledge of yourself. If other people like you get close to me, I'm afraid I won't be beaten. Flying up to the sky with my flag, or just to show your goodwill, you are a good kid, before I can say anything, you can pick me and you clean first. Pick it clean. This matter was what Lao Gunanan and Qing Hu threatened him last time. Han Qian scratched his head and whispered. Do you believe me when I say I didn't think that much? I was just angry and confused at the time, and it doesn't mean that I was too lazy to pay attention to you. I just thought that if I showed my kindness, and then someone gave me a cold ass, I can't accept this kind of thing, so why don't you do it less? Your child will take over your class from now on. If he can't take it, it depends on him how far he can go. I can't help him. How about going to Binhai? It's not easy for you and Joe Ma to work together. I'm so thick-skinned. If we talk about this matter later, can we be reconciled with the little girl of the Luo family? Han Qian sighed while holding his cigar in his mouth. Giving my daughter away to be a daughter-in-law is probably the most frustrating thing I have ever done in my life. As a man who has not yet become a father, I feel that he has failed as a father. I just follow what my old man said, none of the men in the Han family are qualified as fathers. Lao Gu did not deny it and nodded. Counting all the things you have done, this should be your first defeat, right? Han Qian nodded. Absolutely. I failed half the time before and was saved by Wen Nuan. This time I had no choice at all. It's easy to just shake your head and deny that it has nothing to do with me, but this mouth is too difficult. My old man said that men have to face it. He is so kind. My mother has faced me at home all my life, and I have faced difficulties when I go out. Ha 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 ha. Lao Gu raised his head and laughed. Your old man is a strange man. He stuck a bullet in his muscle and pulled it out with a knife. He walked out on his own after the operation. There are not many people I know of him. Your old man is the only one I have seen. How can you do this time? Compromising on the Luo family is unexpected. I thought you would join forces with that little lunatic from the Lu family to swallow up the Luo family. Little lunatic? Harmful. Han Qian sighed and smiled bitterly. This time I lost at the hands of Lin Zongheng. I don't like enemies who know me too well, but my opponents know me very well. Lin Zongheng knows that I take men and responsibilities very seriously. He knowing that I was bound to die, I just thought that it would be over after his death, and I had to bear the consequences of this karma. Anyway, I was calculated after all the calculations. Even if Lin Zongheng did not die, I would still bear the crime of Luo Shen not being able to have children. In the final analysis, isn't it just me who is too carefree? If I hadn't deliberately made Lin Zongheng angry with Luo Shen, I probably wouldn't have gotten into this problem. Regret. Han Qian smiled bitterly and shook his head. What do you regret? If you don't regret it, you have to make peace with what you have come to, and you have to make peace with it if you can't live in peace. Dad Gu, I have thought about it. If I didn't divorce Wen Nuan, I guess there wouldn't be so many messy things. After saying this, Lao Gu leaned forward and shook his head at Han Qian. No, 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 I have read all your information and experiences, including all the things you did when you left college, and I have thought about it. If you had not filed for divorce from Wen Nuan, you might have too. The road can be walked. Han Qian raised his head and grinned. A dog without dignity. Lao Gu nodded and said calmly. Another possibility is that you become Lin Zongheng. If one day, you will become allies with Feng Lun. Maybe he will marry Luo Shen. Looking at Han Qian, who was smiling bitterly, Lao Gu laughed. Maybe this is good. If you and Feng Lun join forces, I will probably be very interested in playing a game of chess with you too. I'm going to get ready to cook. I feel like you want to play chess right now. Don't worry. Qian, let's play role-playing with your old father. You will play Feng Lun, and I will play the dead Lin Zongheng. If it were me, my first step would be to let Nuan catch you. Han Qian smiled and raised his hands. I surrender. Lao Gu frowned. So useless. Han Qian nodded. Yeah. I have no future. My freedom was given to me by warmth. My mother's body conditioning was given to me by warmth. If there was no warmth, I guess I would still be squatting inside now. Father Gu, I found that it's quite worthless. Someone else might have been ready to deal with Nuan and Lin Zongheng, but I can't do anything to Nuan. All I remember in my mind is her kindness to me. Lao Gu sighed, stood up and walked into the kitchen with Han Qian. After a long time, Lao Gu whispered. This is the reason why everyone is willing to believe you and help you. How many people think that a good person has done good things all his life, but suddenly does a bad thing, and all the good things he has done are in vain, Qian. I really don't want to let this happen. You retire. Han Qian whispered. Don't want to and can't are two different things. Zhou Hui, who had already bought groceries and was on her way home, cursed Han Qian in a low voice for his lack of discipline, while Li Yelai giggled from the side. This kid is very smart, but he is afraid that the atmosphere will be unfamiliar or awkward after meeting you. Flattery is not his character, and he does not dare to talk to you with his head held high, so he will tease you and get beaten. Do you feel that he is unknowingly? Have we gotten closer? Zhou Hui turned around and said angrily. Isn't he afraid of smashing his job? He has a sense of proportion and knows when to make jokes. He is not curious about why I believed Han Qian's promise to me and abandoned our sisterhood. Not curious. Aren't you curious why I believe him so much? Curious. Because the whole Bin Hai trusts Han Qian. This kid explains what it means to be a man, and also tells everyone what kind of responsibilities a man should bear on his shoulders. Licious. What man doesn't want to be lustful? Since ancient times, women are beautiful and men are lustful. This is instinct, an instinct that has remained unchanged for thousands of years. Zhou Hui frowned and said in a low voice. No. Like. This little brat has too many evil thoughts. Li Yelai narrowed her eyes and smiled. Indeed. I'm very curious about my child's growing up experience. I give away millions of dollars in cars, as I say. I don't want to waste a bowl of noodles that costs 6 yuan, and I have to drink the soup. Speaking of this, Li Yelai suddenly felt sad and whispered. Zhou Hui, are you willing to let our child take Han Qian's path? He is only 28 years old. Zhou Hui lowered her head, Li Yelai wiped her eyes and spoke in a low voice. I really feel for him. After the divorce, the ex-wife became a creditor. Author, A Huan. Chapter 960. Han Qian cooked skillfully, but Zhou Hui wanted to help but was refused. Lao Gu instead joined in the fun in the kitchen. Watching Han Qian pour the vegetables into the pan, Lao Gu curled his lips. I can do this if you do it, isn't it just frying? Han Qian glanced at Lao Gu and said calmly. The rapeseed cooks quickly, so you don't have to stir-fry it all the time. It's already past noon. If you stir-fry it, it will be too slow. What are you doing here to join in the fun? Let me see. The belated lunch was quite peaceful. Han Qian asked when he got the certificate again. Lao Gu turned to look at Zhou Hui, who pretended not to have seen him. Lao Gu looked at Han Qian again, and then the person whispered. Mother Zhou. You will be the first heir after marriage. Lao Gu put down his chopsticks. Han Qian ignored Lao Gu and continued. Didn't I take my ancient dad out for a ride a few days ago? He is really good at flirting. From 40 to 18, there is no one he can't handle. This is not for those who don't get the certificate. Women have a chance. They say that if you have a stepmother, you will have a stepfather. If these things are inherited by other women's children, will it be a loss? After saying this, Han Qian had no intention of walking out of the house alive. Zhou Hui turned to look at Lao Gu and frowned. Do you really think so? Lao Gu shook his head and replied with a frown. What do you believe in what he says? Han Qian spoke immediately. If you don't want to think about it now, it doesn't mean you will do it in the future. The so-called man's mouth is a lie. Snapped. A slap on the back of the head. Han Qian's face was only 2 or 3 centimeters away from the bowl of rice. Lao Gu frowned. Are you done eating? Get out of here when you're done. Can I say that I haven't finished eating yet? No. Han Qian stood up and sighed, picked up his clothes and walked to the door. When he opened the door, he turned to Zhou Hui and shouted. Mother Zhou. You must think about it carefully. He is not as honest as you think. As soon as he said this, Lao Gu stood up suddenly, and Han Qian ran away. Standing at the gate of the community, Han Qian looked up at the sky and sighed. He thought that coming to the capital would go smoothly. It wasn't that he was in trouble now. It was just that there were a lot of messy things and he didn't have a clue for a while. I took out my phone and looked at the time. It was almost 4 o'clock. It seemed like there was nothing I could do. Go home. Go back to An's home. Just as he put down his cell phone, 2 horns honked from behind. Han Qian turned around and looked at the A6 that Sheng Jing was taking pictures of. Everyone in the Yamen seemed to like using this car, and he didn't know why. The car stopped. Han Qian trotted to the passenger seat and got into the car, smiling. Aunt. Li Yelai pointed to the back seat and said softly. Your mother Zhou asked me to give it to you. Are you determined to bring Lao Gu and Zhou Hui together to remarry? Be careful, if they have a conflict in the future, you will be treated. Turning around and taking 2 cigarettes, Han Qian smiled. Come on, I've done everything, what do you want to do next? Where are you going? Go back to Shengjing. I heard from Lao Gu and Zhou Hui. It seems you won't be able to go back in a short time. Han Qian nodded and whispered. Lu Shenga and Luo Shen have half solved the problem. We really can't go back to Binhai for the time being. Why don't you give me Wufa for entertainment? Taxi rides in the capital are very expensive. Li Yelai nodded in agreement, and then asked where the location was. Han Qian scratched his head and said he didn't know either. Li Yelai said softly as she followed Dao Hang. When will you and King Hu get the certificate? I heard that Nuan is preparing for a wedding. I don't know how King Hu fell in love with you. In front of the traffic light, Han Qian opened the package and took a cigarette. When he was about to find a lighter, Li Yelai had already lit it and brought it to her mouth. Han Qian's hands were shaking slightly, but he still didn't refuse. Li Yelai said again. No matter what you think of me, or how I thought of Qinghu before, I can only be good to her, not bad. I am the only elder in Qinghu now, and I care more about her affairs than my son. I listen. She said that Nuan is preparing for the wedding. She has already received a marriage certificate with you once, and a wedding will be a success. But there may not be a wedding in Qinghu in this life, so you should get your marriage certificate before the wedding. Han Qian was smoking a cigarette and looking out the window, when Li Yelai continued. Qinghu also told me that Yan Qingqing is anxious to have a child. I don't care how you explain it. My baby must get the certificate in front of me. This is also an explanation to her grandfather, otherwise I will leave Qinghu to you, a playboy carrot. I can't see him. Han Qian sighed. I understand. I'll get the certificate with Qinghu when I return to Binhai, but we can't take this matter too hastily. I'll let my mother, Aunt Qian, and you three meet to discuss the date of getting the certificate. We young people, they all follow the Gregorian calendar, so look at the days on the lunar calendar. Ouch. Are you so happy? My mother-in-law and grandma have already lit up cigarettes, why should I refuse? Then Han Qian received 2 more slaps. Li Yelai threw him at the door of Wufa Group and walked away. Han Qian curled his lips. Isn't it just to get a certificate? He held 2 cigarettes under his arm and looked at the car that was far away. He couldn't talk to Wen Nuan or Yan Qingqing about going back to get the certificate. He couldn't even talk to anyone. He thought he had a good time and took some time to secretly get the certificate. Then he thought that Cai Qinghu would definitely consummate the marriage after receiving the certificate, and Han Qian suddenly felt pain in his waist. Anan appeared behind Han Qian and couldn't help but smile secretly when she saw him dazed with 2 cigarettes under his arm. He looked so silly. He coughed before walking away. Ahem. The company has no cardboard boxes to sell to you today. Han Qian turned his head and looked at Anan, who was dressed in white professional attire. She had an incredibly graceful figure. Han Qian smiled flatteringly. You beautiful female bodhisattva with a kind heart. I can't open the pot at home anymore. I don't have a paper shell, but a water bottle will do. I won't pick it. Anan covered her mouth to hold back laughter and coughed again. Hey, you go inside and ask yourself. Does my dignified company CEO care about your water bottle? I will take you for a walk today. Who asked me to be kind? Han Qian followed Anan with a cigarette under his arm, looking like a hooligan. A pair of cloth shoes were turned into slippers by him. He held 2 cigarettes carelessly and did not look like a successful person. Since Anan wanted to play, Han Qian also accompanied him. He actually collected a bag of mineral water bottles in the trainees' dance studio. Anan just stood aside and watched without explaining. For a while, the trainee regarded Han Qian as a fortunately, everyone who collects scraps is of good quality. If you want to be an artist in the future, quality is the first hurdle. After crushing the water bottle, Han Qian walked up to Anan with a smirk on his face and said with a smile. Is this enough for dinner? Anan pressed a finger to her lips, tilted her head and thought. I can eat half a steamed bun without eating pickles. Come on, brother, I'll treat you to some steamed buns. He handed the 2 cigarettes in his hand to Anan, carried the plastic bag in one hand, and hugged Anan's waist with the other hand and left the practice room, leaving the trainees with shocked faces. Where did this big brother come from? Did you come here to set a trap for them? Fortunately, I acted well at the time, otherwise my life might have been ruined. This big brother is so insidious. All the way to Anan's office, Han Qian said softly while looking at the office with floor-to-ceiling windows on 3 sides. Your office is so grand. Stay away from the windows. We will build a guardrail tomorrow. I think this thing is dangerous. Anan nodded obediently, and then Han Qian stepped forward and punched the glass with his fist. Looking at the bloody fist, Annan put down the cigarette in his hand and ran over quickly, holding the bleeding hand and frowning. "What are you doing?" Han Qian smiled. "Let's see if it's okay. It's good that I can come to the capital twice a year in the future. Before I leave the capital, I will leave you a person to protect you. Before this person shows up, I have to check your safety hazards." Annan took out her mobile phone and called someone to deliver the medical kit. The person who delivered the medical kit was Guyan. She was surprised when she saw Han Qian. Her professionalism made her perform reasonably well. She squatted in front of Han Qian and gave Annan become an assistant to bandage Han Qian's right hand. Han Qian frowned. "It's all wrapped up like pig's trotters. I wasn't wrapped like this when I was shot." Shot. This is something that more than 90% of the people have never experienced. Guyan became even more nervous and Annan whispered, "I would bandage you like this when I'm around you. My mother called me at noon. She knew you were going to Liu's house and I didn't follow you. She scolded me so bad that I didn't even dare to let out a fart." Han Qian smiled bitterly. "It's not that I won't help you. I was like a grandson when she scolded me. Keep these 2 cigarettes. The people at the Yamen gate will come to make things difficult for you. Xiao Wu and Xiao Fu, these idiots, can't help. Just give them this cigarette." Annan glanced at the 2 cigarettes on the ground and said doubtfully, "Very well informed. Lao Gu said to get me 2 cigarettes from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, but this cigarette was given to me by Zhou Hui. I guess the level should be a little higher. Tomorrow you get one and go to Luo's house, and you can take the rest. Keep it?" Annan nodded, looking at the hand bandaged into pig's trotters. Han Qian sighed helplessly, then looked at Guyan squatting on the ground and smiled. "What? Now you're reduced to delivering medical kits?" Guyan forced out a smile, and Han Qian couldn't help laughing. "You keep a low profile from now on. Doesn't Wu Qingxi, a girl like me, not bring bodyguards when she goes out? Are you a few levels below her? Go ahead and get busy." Guyan glanced at Annan, who frowned. "I asked you to be more low-key in your actions in the future, didn't you hear me?" After saying this, Guyan was overjoyed and knelt down in front of Han Qian. Han Qian quickly stepped aside, frowning and smiling bitterly. This company, Wufu, is just for Annan to play with. This gift is not popular. Guyan nodded and left the company, shedding tears of excitement when she left. If she hadn't met Han Qian today, she might not have any works in a few years, or even any news. In the office, Han Qian was lying on Annan's lap, enjoying the gentle kneading, and Annan whispered, "Are you kind again? I'm going to hide her in the cold for 5 years." Han Qian said calmly with his eyes closed. "Youth is so short, just know you are wrong. It's great that I met you at the most beautiful age. I'm not coveting your appearance, I like your personality. Just like me before, I took that step regardless of the consequences. I met Nuan, and you met me. It's fate. But I won't meet anyone again. You met Guyan." Annan tilted his head and thought for a moment, when Han Qian suddenly stood up, slapped Annan's beautiful legs, and said angrily, "Are you thinking about young man?" Annan nodded, and Han Qian screamed in anger. "Eat steamed buns when I go home tonight? I'll eat steamed buns too, and I won't give you pickles." Annan looked at Han Qian pitifully and whispered, "Can I have some water, please?" "No. Master. Let's go shopping for groceries. I'll prepare something delicious for you." Annan held Han Qian's arm and left the office. She was lucky, the luckiest, because Han Qian only belonged to her in the capital. But just as she was about to get in the car, 2 resentful people ran over. "Brother-in-law. Brother Qianer." Then Luo Fu got a kick on the butt, but he wasn't angry and laughed. "Where are you 2 going?" "Together." Anan hugged Han Qian's arm and smiled. Go home and eat. Lu Shengguo pinched her chin and said suspiciously. Anan, we have known each other for a long time. Can you cook? Luo Fu pushed Lu Shengguo away, rubbed his hands at Han Qian and smiled. Brother Qianer can cook, I'll buy groceries. Han Qian took a deep breath and gritted his teeth as he looked at the two resentful people. You two are very idle? Have you taken over the company now? The two looked at each other and said in unison. It's time to get off work. Lu Shengguo said immediately. I'll call Zhou Luo Fu, you can eat dog food by yourself. Luo Fu said angrily. I want a woman, wouldn't that? Halfway through the words, Luo Fu lowered his head and whispered as he saw something wrong with Han Qian's face. I'll make a call, but she may not come. Ouch. Luo Fu also has love, and there is a woman in his heart that he can't handle. Anan said a few words in Han Qian's ear, and Han Qian looked at Anan with wide eyes and exclaimed. This dedication. Anan nodded and said seriously. Very dedicated, but too childish. 7,000 words. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. After the divorce, the ex-wife became a creditor. Author, Ahuan. Chapter 961. Luo Fu also has an unsolvable love. This was something Han Qian didn't expect. Although this Luo Fu didn't have any brains in business, his appearance, family, and quality were all considered acceptable. There were too many people to go to an small apartment. Xiao Wu drove, and Han Qian sat in the passenger seat. They drove to pick up Zhou, and Luo Fu went to pick up the woman he couldn't handle. The four of them went to buy groceries, except Han Qian. Apart from that, these three are almost all eldest young ladies and young masters who have no fingers in the water. Yaya and Han Qian were not polite at all. They called each other brother-in-law. Han Qian was not angry and smiled. When you marry a chicken, follow the chicken. When you marry a dog, follow the dog. You have to call me brother Qianer. Yaya curled her lips and remained skeptical. Han Qian said again. Xiao Wu, it depends on whether you are manly or not. Lu Shengguo held her chin and thought. After buying groceries and getting in the car, Lu Shengguo spoke. Do you think Luo Fu can bring that girl here? Anan shrugged and said softly. Maybe it should be okay. Yaya yelled that she wanted to feed Luo Fu dog food. If he could get her to come out, she could stand on her head and run naked today. However, Xiao Wu glared at her and said she was disgusted. If you want to embarrass yourself, I won't embarrass myself with you. Yaya sighed after hearing this. Sure enough, husband and wife are like birds in the same forest. When disaster strikes, they fly separately. Lu Shengguo was too lazy to talk to her. Returning to Lu Shengguo's secret base, when he entered, he whispered that he must not tell his brother that his brother would not allow him to move out and live by himself. Han Qian smiled and said he understood, and Yaya hit Lu Sheng again. Xiao Wu said that he was completely useless. Xiao Wu was too lazy to pay attention to him. Han Qian walked into the kitchen carrying the dishes, and Xiao Wu rolled up his sleeves and came in to help. He didn't understand anything about this, so he washed the dishes awkwardly and whispered. Brother Qianer, actually, my brother is also good at cooking. Han Qian smiled. As expected, Lu Sheng's behavior is not that of a rich young man. I feel that he is not as confident as you. Xiao Wu smiled. You're right to say that. My brother has never enjoyed the treatment of a young master. So, brother Qianer, please don't cause any life trouble between you and him. I only have 2 family members left in total. An Xian washes the vegetables. I don't have anything to do with him. Why bother fighting with him? You can just cook the crabs, shrimps, and conchs in a while. Well, I'll go to Beidou. Lu Shengyu is really a real young master. He studies abroad, spends money, and is rebellious. He does the right things at the right age. Lu Shengge is much worse than him. It is said that the eldest son and eldest daughter enjoy the most father's love and mother's love, but they are also the hardest working and the most sensible. While Lu Shengyu was struggling with the crab, the doorbell rang. Xiao Wu called out Yaya, but there was no response and she didn't know where the woman had gone. When she walked out of the kitchen, Han Qian had already walked to the door with a cigarette in his mouth. Opened the door and looked at Luo Fu, who looked melancholy. Han Qian couldn't help but laugh. "Look at what a bear you are." Luo Fu sighed. At this time, a beautiful figure appeared behind him and called Han Qian softly, "Brother Qian." Han Qian quickly got out of the way and smiled. "I thought this idiot came back on his own, please come in." The girl smiled again, passed by Han Qian, and walked into the living room. When Yaya came down from the second floor, she greeted the girl warmly. It seemed that she knew her, but she probably didn't know her well. Luo Fu looked listless. After walking in the door, Han Qian hugged the guy's neck and dragged him into the kitchen. Lu Shengyu quickly closed the door with quick eyes and hands, and Han Qian whispered, "Everyone has come with you, who are you showing you such a sad face?" When Han Qian said this, Luo Fu's expression became even more bitter. He stood in front of the basin and looked at the crabs inside, sighing. "She didn't come because I shouted. She just agreed to come out when she heard that you were all there." Lu Shengyu curled her lips. Han Qian frowned slightly and said softly, "You can't think like that. If people come out with you, it means you have something to play for." Luo Fu was almost crying when he turned his head again and said sadly, "Brother Qian, it's not what I thought, it was what she said herself." Lu Shengyu snickered on the side. "Chenjing, this woman. It's really possible for you to do such a thing." Luo Fu sighed. At this time, Han Qian was curious about what was going on here. After asking, Luo Fu shut up and Lu Shengyu laughed in a low voice. "Brother Qian, I've heard about this too. This guy Luo Fu didn't do his job properly when he was in junior high school. He was handsome, good at fighting, and did well in studies. Then he hooked up with a group of little girls, and this Chenjing is one of them. That's it? Later, someone confessed to you and you refused." Han Qian curled his lips. Luo Fu took the crabs to the gas stove far away, and Lu Shengyu whispered, "It's not as simple as saying no. I also heard what others said. At that time, this guy made a bet with those gangster friends, saying that he would say goodbye to his virginity before reaching adulthood. Isn't it difficult for you from a wealthy family to have a girl?" "It's not difficult. It seems that they agreed not to spend money or take advantage of their status, and asked the other party to give him some money. Then Luo Fu tricked Chenjing into sleeping with him. This grandson deserved it. He had sex with her before he even had time to put on his clothes. Chenjing said she wanted to break up and forced her to give him 500 yuan. Oh my God, this is really worthy of a grandchild." After hearing about this, Han Qian was really surprised, and Lu Shengyu curled her lips and continued, "Who says it's not the case?" Later, this guy and his friends went to show off to Chenjing and forced Chenjing to admit the matter. The matter was quite big at that time. Chenjing's parents couldn't afford to offend a second-generation ancestor, so they simply transferred school and left. Luo Fu didn't take it seriously, and then he started to be inhumane. "Lu Shengyu, if you have nothing to do, go and clean up the company's toilet. Do you want to show that you understand?" Luo Fu looked irritated. Han Qian and Lu Shengyu looked at Luo Fu and said at the same time, "Deserve it?" Then Han Qian continued, "No one else but you can do such a sinister thing, so what do you mean now?" Lu Shengyu answered, "Brother Qian, I haven't finished speaking yet. Listen to me. Luo Fu said angrily. Lu Shengguo. Han Qian looked at the angry Luo Fu and chuckled. Xiao Wu, please continue talking. I'm really interested in what happened when I was young. Lu Shengguo continued. What happened after that became even more fantastical. I didn't believe it when I first heard about it. Since that day, hasn't Luo Fu stopped doing his job? Sister Shen is busy, and the old man is not in good health. This guy is completely liberated. I spent a lot of money in high school but failed to pass the key points. After Chen Jing left the capital, she went to the south. This happened for 4 years. Chen Jing suddenly became the top scorer in the college entrance examination. She returned to the capital for more than 700 points to go to school. Then her father was suddenly transferred back to the capital Industrial and Commercial Bureau, and his position was not low. After hearing this incident, Han Qian turned his head to look at Luo Fu and said softly. Why do I feel that it sounds like a plot in a novel? I remember that your Luo family was already having problems at that time, right? Your sister was rejected from inheriting the family business, your father was seriously ill, and your Luo family was leaderless, and then you seem to have not quite up to par. Luo Fu covered his head with his hands and squatted on the ground. Lu Shengguo curled her lips. Han Qian started cooking and asked while cooking. I remember you are 28 this year, right? I am 26. Lu Shengguo is 28. Chen Jing is also 26. She hasn't been in love in the past few years. Talk. The results of it? Either you take the money and get out of here, or you get beaten up every day. Han Qian took a deep breath and Lu Shengguo spoke. Chen Jing doesn't want to talk to you, you deserve it. You hang out in the bar every day, and you still make trouble when others are in love. Aren't you sick? After saying this, he threw a pot of green beans to Luo Fu and Xiao Wu said. Pick it off, and I'll beat you if you have silk. Luo Fu sighed and picked the beans obediently. There was nothing wrong with it. He only wanted to do it or not. After picking the beans, Xiao Wu handed the potatoes to Luo Fu. Needless to say this time, Luo Fu squatted on the ground and peeled them. Xiao washed the vegetables and tried to cut them. After a moment of silence, Han Qian suddenly spoke. Xiao Luofu, have you always liked Chen Jing? Luo Fu raised his head and was about to speak harshly, then lowered his head and said softly. I don't know. I didn't understand what I thought when I was a child. Now that I think about it, I think she was just pretending. She just wanted to tell those people that she slept with me. Don't be wrong and think about hugging me. She threw water in my face at that time, and I slapped her. I regretted it. His father went to my house to apologize to my sister, and he was also angry at the time. I had bullied his daughter, so why did he have to apologize? Then, the news I heard about her was that she went to Tsinghua University. Then what? Then I just watched it silently. How could I, a loser who spent money to go to a not-so-famous university, have the face to show up in front of others? I was afraid that she would scold me. Now they are better than me in everything. Then how did you two get in touch again? Luo Fu raised his head and sighed, speaking softly. She had a boyfriend when she was in school, and they were both in the capital. Among the few rotten garlics, who was the right one? At the bar, she listened to her boyfriend hugging 2 girls and talking a lot. He probably just said, look, let's see, I got Chen Jing's father's position, and it would be easier to make money in the future. I was a little drunk at that time. So I started to do it. They didn't even touch me with a finger. Then I was arrested and was whipped by Chen Jing at the police station. A slap in the face, hee hee. It still hurts. Looking at Luo Fu's despicable appearance, Lu Shengguo said with disdain. Look, how mean. Luo Fu wasn't angry either. He lowered his head and peeled potato slices and murmured in a low voice. I like it. I just like it. I have liked her since I was a child. I don't know why I like her. She looks just okay. I can't even remember the names of the girls I have hooked up with over the years. They are ladies and celebrities. It's okay for peripheral people and college students, but it's not okay for people on the top. When I get up there, I remember the scene where she splashed water on my face. After saying that, the kitchen door was opened. Chen Jing rolled up her sleeves and walked into the kitchen. She took Luo Fu's hand and asked him to stand aside. Then she picked up the half-peeled potatoes and walked to the sink. She glanced at Lu Shengguo. Said angrily. Don't bully Luo Fu. Why don't you peel it yourself? Lu Shengguo raised her hands and quickly stepped aside. Han Qian turned his head and glanced at the girl named Chen Jing. She really looks like a good wife and mother, which is really suitable for Luo Fu. In the kitchen, Luo Fu was carrying plates and bowls, and An and Yaya were preparing drinks in the restaurant. Chen Jing was washing and chopping vegetables, Han Qian was cooking, and Lu Shengguo was watching the explanation on her phone and cooking rice, even though this guy couldn't do it. Food, the things at home are quite complete. After briefly communicating with Chen Jing, Han Qian sighed. Luo Fu is water, Chen Jing is human. At the dinner table, the 6 young people had a common topic. Chen Jing had a good drinking capacity. Yaya asked curiously, and Chen Jing smiled. Drinking is also a compulsory course in life. It will come in handy at work in the future. At least I can drink some Luo Fu at dinner to add some spice to life. Yaya was slightly surprised and whispered. Don't you think Luo Fu is a fool? Chen Jing took Luo Fu's hand and said softly. Having liked me for so many years, I am his first woman, and he is my first man, my first love. Luo Fu smiled innocently, he had not touched a drop of wine. Han Qian got some wine for Anan and said softly. You can drink whatever you want, it's all from our family. Anan nodded, and then Han Qian spoke. Where does Xiaojing work now? Chen Jing let go of Luo Fu's hand, picked up the wine glass with both hands, and said with a smile. I was admitted as a civil servant last year, and now I am working as a clerk in the Cultural Affairs Bureau. Brother Qianer, I have heard people around me talking about you, and I respect you. Don't be so polite, I'll feel uncomfortable. Chen Jing smiled, raised her head and drank a glass of wine. After eating, Lu Shengguo took Han Qian to play games. Yaya and Anan stood aside and cheered for their men. Chen Jing watched for a while. After whispering that it was a bit late, Luo Fu stood up and asked to be sent home. Hearing the sound of the door closing, Lu Shengguo quickly threw away the handle of her phone and looked at the 3 of them seriously. Bet. Is Luo Fu coming back? Yaya narrowed her eyes and said. He will definitely come back. Anan nodded. Probably not staying overnight. Lu Shengguo chuckled. I guess he won't come back. Brother Qianer. Don't you guess? Han Qian put down the controller and sighed. He definitely won't run back by himself. Anan is right, he won't stay overnight either. Let's go. Go by bike. Just when Lu Shengguo was about to refuse, Yaya Shangqian grabbed his hair. Let's go. I hear Brother Qianer seems to mean that Luo Fu has no face to come back. After the divorce, the ex-wife became a creditor. Author, A Huan. Chapter 962. 4 people were riding bicycles on the road. Lu Shengguo sang loudly while riding. Han Qian couldn't understand what he was singing, so why did he dance to Shakala? It's a good idea to ride a bicycle on a cool summer night for some exercise. Anan asked in a low voice. Why do you feel that Luo Fu will fail? Han Qian chuckled softly. First love. It's more suitable to remember. Anan seems to understand but not understand. In a community in the 4th Ring Road of Beijing, Chen Jing stood inside the community door and Luo Fu stood outside. The two had been in a stalemate for more than 10 minutes. Chen Jing's hand passed through the railing, pinched Luo Fu's face, and smiled. Road. Okay. Stop acting like a baby. It's very late. Brother Chiener and the others are waiting for you. Luo Fu looked at Chen Jing and whispered. Just now you. Chen Jing sighed and smiled. So many people are looking at you. What matters between you and me is between us. I don't want the handsome Master Luo to be embarrassed in front of others. They brought their fiancé, Canary, and I played the role of your girlfriend. How nice. After saying these words, Luo Fu shed tears, lowered his head and choked. I knew it. Chen Jing held Luo Fu's face and said softly. Luo Fu, in fact, we are not suitable. In your heart, I am just a prey that escaped, a woman who has embarrassed you and you are not willing to accept it. Maybe we are not even the first love. Really, in fact, what you want in your heart is not me, it's just an obsession, be good. Stop crying. Luo Fu grabbed Chen Jing's hand and choked. I'm sure I like you very much. But I don't like you anymore. I thought you had changed over the years, but you haven't. You are still the Luo Fu you were before, but Chen Jing is no longer the Chen Jing you used to be. I have changed, I have become more, the reality is even more powerful, and you can't give me any help anymore. Luo Fu suddenly took a step back, waiting for Chen Jing to roar. I know. I know that you have been lying to me all this time. You have been lying to me since the day you started contacting me today. You never thought that we would get back together. Chen Jing laughed to herself. Yes. I want to coax you well. I didn't coax you well when I was a child, which caused our whole family to leave the capital. I don't want to make the same mistake again, and I don't want to be pestered by you all the time. I am already 26 years old, and I want to, if I'm in love, I also want to get married. I can't keep taking care of Luo Fu, who I once loved but hasn't grown up yet. I lied to you. Chen Jing, you are a liar. After roaring, Luo Fu turned around and ran away, threw down the car and ran away. Looking at Luo Fu's back, Chen Jing opened her mouth, but the cry and solicitation turned into 5 words. I'm getting married. Luo Fu, who had already run far away, suddenly fell to the ground, then turned over and covered his face and cried loudly. Chen Jing's tears were also rolling in her eyes. She covered her mouth without making any sound, turned around and walked in step by step. Community. Do you like it? Like. Can we be together? Cannot. I hope you hate me because I failed to satisfy your vanity when you were young, then I will be a bad person now to let you grow up. They say men are childish. Then he has never been hurt, Luo Fu. When you don't take women to heart, that's when you grow up. You have to mature, you have to grow up. The huge Luo family needs you to inherit it. Hate me. I won't let you know that I still like you. 4 people were squatting on the steps of the green belt far away in the community. Yaya looked at Luo Fu, who was lying on the ground crying, and sighed softly. Lu Shengyu suddenly stood up and said angrily. I'll ask her. Is there a father who is the director of the Industrial and Commercial Bureau who is very awesome? Yaya waved her hand and slapped Lu Shengyu on the waist, whispering. Don't you think Xiao Luofu is sad enough? You can't force things like love. Dance. Squat down and don't let Luofu see us. Lu Shengyu squatted in front of the green belt again, turned to look at Han Qian, and whispered. Brother Qianer, are we just going to watch like this? Han Qian shook his head and sighed. I can't bear it. Lu Shengyu stood up suddenly, and then Han Qian spoke. Go home. Yaya and Anan, you two find a place to live by yourselves. Xiao and we will go back to your place. Hey? Brother Qianer, don't you say you can't bear it. So I stopped watching. The two girls took a taxi and left. Han Qian and Lu Shengguo chose to ride bicycles. When passing by a convenience store, Han Qian spoke. Xiao Wu, have you brought any money? Go buy some beer, let's buy 60 cans for 3 of us, and some snacks. Lu Shengguo looked at Han Qian resentfully and whispered. Are you going to exhaust me to death? Should I have someone see you off? It's okay if you're not afraid of your brother. The two of them rode slowly and leisurely. At the gate of the community, Luo Fu was tired of crying and had enough. He turned his head and glanced at the door of the community, stood up and took a deep breath. At this time, he received a text message on his phone. Come back and drink. Luo Fu gritted his teeth, got in the car and left. In the community, Chen Jing watched the car leave, and her tears did not stop. When she got up, she saw her father standing not far away. Chen Jing stepped forward, lowered her head, and choked. Dad, I'm sorry. Are you really willing to give up? I know you like him quite a lot, but you feel uncomfortable. Tomorrow I will go talk to some old men from the Luo family. No more talking, let's just let it go. After so many years, he can't let it go, and I have to let it go too. We are both in the capital, and we will still see each other in the future. I can try the blind date you mentioned. We're no longer together. My daughter doesn't have to worry about getting married. Let's go. Go home and your mother will cook dumplings for you. Yeah, go home. Two people who like each other will not stay together. Han Qian called this approach hypocritical. In 100 years of life, how good would it be to have wine now and get drunk the next? What are you thinking about so much? When you embarrass others, you also hurt yourself. Luo Fu returned to Lu Shengguo's stronghold, and the two of them left the door open for him. Luo Fu opened the door and walked into the living room, spreading his arms and laughing loudly. Brother, you succeeded. Xiao Wu, please congratulate me. Lu Shengguo glanced at Luo Fu, then at Han Qian, and smiled. Success? Then we have to celebrate. 60 cans of Budweiser, 20 for each person. Not much, right? You didn't drink just now. Brother Qianer and I drank a lot of white. Luo Fu walked forward and sat in front of the coffee table with a small stool. He looked at the simple snacks on the table and smiled. Is this something to drink with? Peanuts, chicken feet, sausages, spicy strips. These are 4 very simple snacks, Lu Shengguo laughed. Don't you dare? If you go to Chen Jing's gentle hometown, you won't be able to be a hero. Luo Fu laughed. Hero? Only fools become heroes. I will be a rich second generation with no future. I will live longer to experience the beauty of this world. The 3 men opened a can of beer, drank it, then took a bite of sausages that cost $1 each, and opened another can of beer. Han Qian and Lu Shengguo did not speak, but they also opened a can of beer, and then opened another can of beer. After drinking it all in one gulp, Luo Fu smiled at the two of them. I am the little prince who will never get drunk after 1,000 cups. Can you two do it? After saying that, Lu Shengguo threw a can to Luo Fu, then opened a can and handed it to Han Qian, and drank it again. The 3 of them drank very quickly. In less than an hour, the ground was covered with beer cans. Lu Shengguo blushed and asked Luo Fu if he still wanted to drink. Luo Fu looked at Han Qian and Han Qian smiled. I can drink up to 20. Luo Fu took out his mobile phone and called Luo Qing and asked him to find someone to deliver beer. He only wanted beer and nothing else. The location was Lu Shengguo's house. He would find it by himself. After hanging up the phone, Luo Fu picked up the last can of beer was drank in one gulp, and then the guy lowered his head. After a while, Lu Shengguo stretched out his hand to hold Luo Fu's head and whispered. Stop pretending, Qianer and I both saw it. Luo Fu raised his head again with tears streaming down his face and choked with sobs. Xiao Wu, brother Qian'er. Why? Why? Why is it so difficult for me? Xiao Wu, you and Yaya have been a couple for a long time. Brother Qian'er, you have never experienced the pain of love, why did you come to me? It's become like this, she has me in her heart. She must like me, she doesn't want me to lose face, but she said I am useless, she doesn't like me anymore, she is getting married. Qian. Brother, Xiao Wu, you too tell me why. Han Qian took out a cigarette and put it into Luo Fu's mouth, lit it for him, lowered his head and said. I don't understand, I haven't experienced it, I don't know what to say. Luo Fu took a puff of cigarette and turned to look at Lu Shengguo. Xiao Wu's eyes were also blank. After a long time, he also shook his head and whispered. I can drink with you. Luo Fu cried. After she returned to the capital, I have been paying attention to her. I have liked her since I was a child. I went to the bar and sent her a message. She asked me to drink less, but I really hope she can tell me not to go there in the future. High profile and female, the whole country knew that a celebrity was in love, but when I asked her how this woman was, she actually asked me who this woman was. Yes. She may not have paid attention to me, but when Brother Qian'er first came to the capital, she called me the phone, told me that Brother Qian'er had come to the capital and asked me to be good. What? This is all nothing. Han Qian glanced at Luo Fu and whispered. I really don't know how to say it, but I feel like she should like you quite a lot, but why do we torture each other? Isn't it good to be happy? Luo Fu suddenly stood up, wiped the tears on his face, and gritted his teeth. I'm not willing to give in. I'm going to find her. Lu Shengguo stood up and said angrily. If you look for her, you will lose. Luo Fu threw Lu Shengguo away and roared angrily. I have lost. I have never won. I don't care about winning or losing. I don't want my love to die like this. Even if it's the same this time, I can tell myself that I tried hard. After saying that, he turned around and ran away, followed closely by Han Qian and Lu Shengguo. When Luo Fu opened the car door, Han Qian grabbed him by the back collar and forcibly dragged him out of the community. Xiao Wu had already stopped the taxi. The driver looked at the three drunkards and was a little reluctant to write business. Lu Shengguo he took out a handful of bills and threw them in the driver's face. Drive. When they arrived at Chenjing community, Luo Fu shook the iron gate crazily. When the security guard at the door came out and tried to stop him, Han Qian stepped forward and grabbed the security guard's collar and pressed it against the wall. Lu Shengguo once again took out a handful of banknotes and stuffed them. Entering the security guard's collar, he growled. If you dare to stop me, I will buy your property company. Luo Fu successfully entered the community, stood downstairs in Chenjing's unit, took a deep breath, raised his head and shouted. Chenjing. I like you. I, Luo Fu, like Chenjing. Han Qian and Lu Shengguo squatted not far away and smoked. They didn't feel embarrassed and just stayed with them while Luo Fu shouted over and over again. In the bedroom, Chenjing covered herself with a quilt. She had already burst into tears. Chen Ma opened the door and looked at the slightly fluttering quilt. She stepped forward and said softly. Don't you want to go down and take a look? No. I won't go, otherwise all my efforts over the past few years will be in vain, Mom. I can't hold on anymore. Chen's mother hugged her daughter tightly, and Chenjing burst into tears. After yelling for 20 minutes, Luo Fu's voice was hoarse and he couldn't speak. The text messages on his phone came one after another. Luo Fu didn't read them. He knew who sent the text messages and what the content was. At this time, Han Qian suddenly sighed and whispered. Xiao Wu, the three of us may have to sit down. Looking at several police officers walking in the distance, Lu Shengguo stood up and said softly. Then what can I do? After all, I only have 2 brothers and 1 good friend. Just squat, I will surrender first. Han Qian curled his lips. Go out. Then he stood up and shouted. You wait a moment, I will surrender too. 7,000 words, I am very diligent. After the divorce, the ex-wife became a creditor. Author, A Huan. Chapter 963. In the station, the police officers looked at these 3 people with a headache. Regardless of their identities, they were all in a state of drunkenness. The young master of the Luo family was handcuffed to the radiator. This is a no-brainer, in order to prevent him from attacking the police. Han Qian and Lu Shengguo were squatting in the corridor, smoking, and Lu Shengguo whispered. Brother Qianer, why don't you call Lao Gu? What are you calling for this matter? They have probably contacted our family members for bail by now. Guess whether it is your brother or Yaya who will come. Lu Shengguo didn't speak. After a while, the director came over and signaled that he could be let go. The 2 helped Luo Fu out of the police station. Looking at Luo Qing standing at the door, Han Qian sighed and pushed Luo Fu and Xiao Wu away. Luo Qing. I gave it to you. If you lose it, don't look for me. Luo Qing took the 2 of them, and then waved to the car in the distance. Several people got out of the car and helped Luo Fu and Lu Shengguo into the car. Luo Qing walked towards Han Qian. Brother Qianer, I'll see you off. Han Qian did not refuse and got into Luo Qing's car. Luo Qing handed him a cigarette. Han Qian shook his head and refused. No more. You must be a non-smoker, right? Luo Qing smiled and nodded. Smoking is not addictive. If you meet someone who smokes, you will light one. Indeed, if you refuse the cigarettes offered by others, the other party will be a little embarrassed. Smoking before may have felt very powerful, but now smoking always feels inferior. Brother Qianer never thought about quitting smoking. When I was not divorced, I quit smoking. Now that I'm divorced and there are so many things to do, I have to choose between smoking and drinking. Otherwise, I might collapse when I'm stressed. Nicotine anesthetizes the brain. You can take it and let it go. You are a strange person. Some people will do whatever it takes to get benefits and want to get rid of all the family members who threaten them, but you are a good wealth boy. That's what Binhai people call me. Someone told me my fortune and told me that I was not destined to be rich and powerful, and that I couldn't keep money with my hands. They said that I was going against my destiny and was too tough on my future generations and those around me. Everyone is not good, there are too many people implicated because of me. For example, my sister. I'm going to say that she has bad eyesight. What do you think? I won't make any comments. My sister is a smart woman, and she has her own reasons for what she does. In other words, I am the younger brother, and I support whatever my sister does. Han Qian took Luo Qing's cigarette and smiled. Do you know what Luo Fu is doing tonight? Luo Qing looked slightly embarrassed and whispered. Luo Fu has a more temperate personality. Chen Jing is a very good woman. My sister has praised her many times and said that everything Chen Jing did, including returning to the capital to go to school, was all for Luo Fu, but Luo Fu didn't understand, he is too childish. Han Qian smiled. If I weren't naive, I wouldn't have what happened today. In fact, it's pretty good. What does this mean to Chen Jing? Growing up with a boy will not help him grow old. It's quite scheming. This way Luo Fu can remember her for a lifetime. I estimate that Luo Fu will be a different person tomorrow. I don't know this. Han Qian sighed and then spoke again. Yao Guangda didn't say anything when he died. Luo Qing smiled and shook his head. I didn't beg for mercy. I just asked if you wanted to kill him. I didn't say anything. Han Qian smiled. You really didn't say that. Fake. After returning to An's apartment all the way, Luo Qing opened the car door and sent Han Qian into the community. Outside the elevator door, Luo Qing said softly, "My sister has never mentioned the matter of the second wife. Please make it clear, brother Qian. It sounds better to raise a few rice worms than to kill a few." "Yes." Luo Qing watched the elevator door close before he turned and left. The moment he watched the elevator door close, Han Qian suddenly fell to the ground. After drinking so much wine, he had been trying to stay awake. Now he couldn't bear it anymore. Climbing to the door of An's apartment, Han Qian remembered that he knocked on the door, but he didn't remember anything after that. "When I woke up the next morning, I felt bad all over. There seemed to be something blocked in my chest, and my stomach kept rumbling. This morning, Han Qian couldn't calm down. He ran to the toilet, vomited, and finally felt like he was vomiting out bile. In the end, An couldn't stand it anymore, so he took Han Qian to the hospital, and the results were given after an examination. Drinking caused acute gastritis. I was told to drink less and drink more water, and was prescribed some medicine. After leaving the hospital, Han Qian rested half of his body on An and frowned in a low voice. "Did you bring your cigarette? Let's go to the Luo family and show your face to avoid those old guys from the Luo family making irresponsible remarks on you in the future." An frowned and looked at Han Qian, and whispered, "You're not alive anymore? You're vomiting and having diarrhea now. If you're like this, I'm going to call the people in Binhai." Mentioning the people in Binhai, Han Qian felt a little headache, half lying in An's arms, and whispered, "I just went over to say a few words and didn't do anything else. Besides, Luo Fu and we went to the police station last night and squatted for more than an hour. After all, I am the oldest. I don't want to go over and say this. I will go back to Binhai in the future. They don't I have to take it out on you." An stroked Han Qian's face and whispered, "Just vent your anger, I don't care. No. Drive to Luo's house." An didn't insist. Although it was not the first time he came to Luo's house, Han Qian was still shocked by the house. As soon as he walked in, he met Luo Shen's father. Han Qian bowed and saluted and said softly, "I met uncle." Father Luo nodded with a smile, pointed at the pavilion in the middle of the lake, and said with a smile, "Talk to me." Han Qian bowed and saluted again, and then motioned An to chat with Luo Shen or Luo Fu. Lu Shengui was probably here too. In the pavilion in the middle of the lake, the maid of the Luo family brought snacks and tea, and the pale Han Qian smiled bitterly. "I'm sorry for what happened last night. Logically speaking, I should have stopped Luo Fu, but in the end I helped him, and ended up being caught in the situation." Father Luo chuckled. "It doesn't matter, young people just did some things that young people should do. My son has no future, but he is lucky. He has a sister to protect him, a woman to grow up with him, and a family brother to help him. I am a friend, and now that I have you, I feel relieved." Han Qian frowned slightly. "You can't rest assured. He's not a grandfather yet. Why are you so anxious? Luo Fu isn't married yet, and Luo Shen isn't a mother yet." Father Luo smiled. "Are you afraid that I will seek death?" "Afraid? I'm afraid that anyone will die. People I don't know will suddenly leave. I will also wonder why life is so fragile. What's more, you are the father of Luo Fu and Luo Shen. I don't want to see them sad. I don't know how to enlighten them." Father Luo laughed after hearing this. "Let nature take its course. Live well while you can live. You won't be sad if you die, and you have nothing to worry about. This is good. I won't say more about you and the little god. I just saw that An had a good one in his hand. If you don't get sick, you must try the cigarettes. It's rare to find special offers at the top Yamen gates. You'd better take care of yourself. After spending an hour with Luo's father by the lake, when he started to cough, the maid came and took him back to his room. Han Qian stood by the lake and took a deep breath, when Luo Shen's voice came from behind. You are not allowed to urinate by the lake again. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. After the divorce, the ex-wife became a creditor. Author, Ahuan. Chapter 964. Sitting in the pavilion with Luo Shen, Han Qian was like a mute and didn't say a word. Luo Shen was not in a hurry to speak, and just sat quietly until the sky turned hazy and Han Qian suddenly spoke. I don't recommend that you leave the capital and hide for 2 years. You should spend more time with the old man. He may not have 2 more years. Luo Shen put his hands on his knees and sighed. Yes. Now that I think about it, I suddenly regret it. I didn't accompany my mother well when I was a child, and I didn't accompany my father when I grew up. My heart was focused on the broken man. Han Qian glanced at Luo Shen and curled his lips. If I had met you instead of Nuan, I estimate that we would have been arguing for more than 1,000 days in 3 years. Why are you so harsh in your words? Luo Shen sighed and smiled. You wouldn't have met me, and my character wouldn't have accompanied a boy into a man. For example, that Chen Zheng. How is Luo Fu? He's very lively, but he doesn't dare to go out for fear that we will laugh at him. What's the point of bringing An in here today? To make him look familiar. Yes, she will definitely come over to see my daughter often in the future. Tell me something you don't like to hear. When she has a child, there must be communication between siblings. You know I don't like hearing what you say. How about I jump in and take a shower? As the words came out, the rain fell from the sky and rippled on the lake. It's rainy again. Han Qian's favorite rainy day, he looked at Luo Shen and smiled. Give you a chance. Luo Shen shook his head while holding his shoulders. I prefer getting caught in the rain in the middle of the night, after the fact. I am sick. Coward. Watch the rain scene by yourself. I'm going to have lunch with my dad. You and Luo Fu will eat together later. Luo Shen left as soon as he said it, without any hesitation. Han Qian looked at the rain outside the pavilion. He smiled and took a deep breath after smiling. Maybe this is what life will be like after retirement? Not long after, Luo Fu came over with a livid face, gritted his teeth and whispered. Why didn't you stop me last night? Seeing Luo Fu, Han Qian couldn't help but smile. Why are you stopping me? I stopped you. You still regret it today. Why didn't you take advantage of the drunkenness to express your feelings? Just do it. How did you come up with your bold words last night? Stop talking. Oops. I'm so embarrassed. Luo Fu sat in the pavilion, stuffed all the snacks into his mouth, and spoke vaguely. I heard from Anan that you got gastritis from drinking. That's rubbish, just some wine. Where's Xiao Wu? It's not as good as you. Your eyes are wide open now as if you want to go to the toilet, but your legs are not obedient. Where's Anan? I went to have lunch with my dad. Why did you bring her here? Sit at the same table to eat with my sister? Did you do it on purpose? You know nothing. Let's wait and see when you can figure it out. Chen Jing is talking about it. Luo Fu fell silent and glared at Han Qian as he drank tea. About an hour later, Han Qian and Anan left the capital. As soon as they returned to Anan's apartment, Lu Shenga called. Choose a time and go back to Binhai together. You go back first. I have to wait a few days and play with Anan for a few days before going back. Anan was silent and didn't speak. Han Qian told her to choose what she wanted to play now, it could be anywhere. I spent a week playing with Anan in the capital, and had afternoon tea with Lao Gu. Han Qian drove back to Binhai, and went all the way to Zhikao arranged Han Qian's clothes, and said softly. If you are not busy, can I go to Binhai to find you? Anytime. As long as you have time, don't give it away. I've been playing in the capital for almost a month. Be good. Be obedient. Anan walked very gracefully, and Han Qian was in a good mood. It was already dark when I got home, so I didn't bother my parents and quietly went back to the home I hadn't returned to for a long time. I walked into the bedroom and saw the girl lying on the tatami staring at him with big eyes. Han Qian was slightly confused. Why did you come home? Wen Nuan raised her two white little feet and said softly. My parents went back to their hometown to attend the ceremony, and I came home to live there. How do you feel about your trip to the capital? Han Qian took off his coat and changed into pajamas and went to bed. He looked sideways at Nuan and sighed. Tired? There are a lot of messy things, but they are almost solved. How is Binhai lately? The weather is going smoothly, nothing happened. After you left Binhai, everyone was busy with their own affairs, and there was very little time to see each other. Yan Qingqing was planning her aunt's life, and she seemed to be going crazy day by day. In short, it's okay, I suddenly thought, will Binhai look like this after you retire? Han Qian stretched out his hand to hold the girl in his arms and smiled. Isn't this great? I'm going to let Lushenga go to a temple by the sea to become a monk, and then take you to herd cattle. Do you want to go? Go. As long as I don't go to work, I'm willing to go anywhere. I'm going to make up for the wedding in August, what do you think? I have no opinion. Pure Chinese style. You just have to make the decision. Then should I ride a horse and bring the big red flower? Nuan pinched Han Qian's face and smiled. No need to do anything special, just the normal procedure. I must have Chinese style. I want to wear the queen's clothes. I'm so angry at Yan Qingqing. Why don't they call her empress now? I have to get her clothes like a little palace maid's. The two chatted incessantly, and Han Qian, who fell asleep, had forgotten when. Maybe it was because he hadn't slept with Nuan in this house for a long time. Han Qian suddenly felt like he hadn't been divorced before. When he got up in the morning, Nuan was still sleeping. Han Qian had already started preparing breakfast in the kitchen. When it was time to get up, he went upstairs and pinched it. With a warm face, Wen Nuan opened his eyes and hugged Han Qian's head, kissed his forehead, then climbed out of bed and went downstairs in a daze. Neither of them is in the habit of sleeping naked, and they don't need any mess. Wen Nuan closed his eyes and ate steamed buns. Han Qian knocked on the table. Wen Nuan opened his eyes and took a sip of millet porridge, smiling innocently. After dinner, Han Qian took a shower, changed clothes, walked out together, and said goodbye in the parking lot. The two cars left the community, passing one heading east and one heading west at the intersection. Nuan yawned, as if he hadn't woken up. Han Qian's mental state was not very good. He walked into glory listlessly. He tried 10 fingers in front of the clock card machine without giving up. However, there was still no reaction at all. He walked into the general department and said to everyone. As soon as everyone woke up and greeted each other playfully, Han Qian lay in front of the computer and continued to catch up on his sleep. At 10 o'clock, Yang Lan came back with documents in his arms. Now the general department has become the miscellaneous department again, processing documents sent by various departments. Yang Lan pointed at Han Qian, who was sleeping on the table, and Yao Shui shrugged. I don't know. I went to the capital once and looked at this haggard person. Yang Lan gently patted Han Qian's shoulder. Han Qian sat up and looked at Yang Lan with a blank expression. He smiled innocently, then lay down and continued to sleep. As soon as he fell asleep, the whole floor became quiet. Maybe they didn't know how powerful Han Qian was before, but now they know that Mr. Yan is the boss of honor, but Han Qian is the one who calls the shots behind the scenes. Many people are upset why they didn't get along well with Han Qian earlier. The general department's people don't take this seriously, because no matter how rich Han Qian becomes, he is still the same Han Qian. Yang Lan sighed softly and whispered. The cafeteria made pork chops for lunch. After saying this, Han Qian stood up suddenly. Time to eat. A lazy day. After the divorce, the ex-wife became a creditor. Author, A Huan. Chapter 965. Glory's cafeteria has been changed to a self-service style. 20 yuan for a meal on this day is really not cheap. Qianwan from the General Affairs Department generously said that he would give each person a meal supplement of 5 yuan, so that Sister Yang could eat in her deducted from salary. Although everyone knows that Qianwan is a eldest lady and is not short of the 1800 yuan, it is useless to everyone. Now their salary in the general department can fully pay for this meal. A large table of people gathered together, which is rare in canteens. The old people in the company know that people in the general department have high incomes and rarely eat in the canteen. The newcomers regard the general department as a mysterious department where it is said that there are crouching tigers, hidden dragons. Yang Lan and Li Zhuolong were both here today. Yang Lan held dishes for Han Qian and said softly. Why do you kid only eat meat? Shan Shan, you have to eat more meat to see how thin you become. Yang Lan was taking care of several young children like a parent. Han Qian took a big gulp of rice and spoke to Chen Jing, a young girl who came to the general department later. When I went to the capital, I met a girl with the same name as you. She was the top scorer in the college entrance examination. Tell me, what is your score in the college entrance examination? Chen Jing glared at Han Qian, then sighed. More than 400 points, right? At that time, I was watching idol dramas and fell in love. Falling in love in middle school is so sweet. It's great to come to my place. Day by day, people come to me to borrow money. At that time, I felt it's like I've raised a son. Puppy love is indeed bad. After saying this, Han Qian looked at Shan Shan and smiled. What are you waiting for and you haven't fallen in love yet? Fang Shan Shan chuckled. Waiting for someone to pick me up on colorful auspicious clouds. Sun Wukong? Do you like monkeys? Shan Shan, let me tell you, humans and monkeys are something that only occurs in India. This is not okay. Brother Qian. Shan Shan glared at Han Qian, then put all the pieces of pork chops in Han Qian's bowl, as if she wanted to choke him to death. Everyone laughed, and they were in a good mood. Halfway through the meal, little Yang Jiajuan he came over with a bowl of rice, sat next to Yang Lan and started to use chopsticks on the lunch on the table. Yang Lan frowned. Why do you come to the cafeteria to join in the fun? Don't you have lunch in the office every day? Mr. Yan has a rest in the afternoon, but he didn't give me a day off. No one will reimburse me for lunch when she's not in the company. Brother Qian, when did you come back? Will you reimburse me for lunch? Han Qian glared at Xiao Yangjia and curled his lips. You just saw me? Just for this reason, you go and pay for today's lunch. Hearing that it would cost money, Xiao Yangjia quickly put down the bowl and whispered. I don't want to eat. I have no money. I'm poor. I'm hungry. Han Qian pinched the pork chop with his hand and dipped it in a little sauce, and drank half of it in one mouthful. His eyes were about to burst into flames when he saw little Yangjia. At this time, Qianwan suddenly hugged little Yangjia and said with a smile. Your salary is 6,000 to 7,000 a month, right? Not counting bonuses, Mr. Yan makes you run errands every day, and you can still get 1,000 to 2,000 as pocket money a month. Where is your money? Xiao Yangjia said hurriedly. How dare I embezzle Mr. Yan's money? I'm keeping track of everything. A girl needs to buy clothes, cosmetics, and snacks. Now she has a car. It costs money to refuel, wash the car, and maintain it. Where is the money left? If you don't believe me, ask my sister. Xiao Yangjia looked at Yang Lan with eyes full of expectation. As a result, Sister Yang said that Xiao Yangjia wanted to sever the sisterhood with Yang Lan because she didn't care about your spending power. Sul Yang couldn't help laughing while eating noodles. You buy clothes from a hammer. If you tell me that Sister Yang buys clothes, I believe it. In the past 365 days a year, I have never seen Sister Yang wear the same kind of clothes. After saying this, Yang Lan was slightly embarrassed. Sul Yang pointed at the uniform on Yang Jia and curled his lips. I only see you wearing these 4 clothes in a year, 2 black ones, 1 white one, and the pink one you are wearing now. Do you have any other clothes? Xiao Yangjia said angrily. No money for stockings. No money for high heels? Mr. Yan's rule is that you wear a suit, and my rule is that you must wear high heels of more than 6 centimeters, and a new pair of stockings every day. If you wear silk stockings, you will be fined. A pair of stockings costs 10 yuan, and you have 20 pairs of high heels. You earn a salary of more than 100,000 yuan a year. Don't call yourself poor. I'm buying something for my niece. After saying this, Yang Lan couldn't help it anymore and whispered. Every time you and Bai Bei go out, Bai Bei spends money. I don't know why you like so much money. You guys from the general department teamed up to bully people. Everyone laughed. Little Yang Jia picked up the chopsticks and snatched the pork chop from Han Qian's bowl. While eating, she snorted arrogantly at Han Qian. Lu Zhuolong, who had never spoken, whispered. Maybe you don't know, right? Little Yang Jia bought a house not long ago, with full payment. When the news broke, everyone was surprised. Han Qian leaned forward and said softly. You can only work for 5 years, right? Not bad. Xiao Yangjia smiled and did not dwell on this topic. The checkout was also a joke. Everyone had a meal card, and the money was automatically deducted when buying. After the meal, several men smoked a cigarette outside the company. Han Qian pointed upstairs, and Sul Yang nodded with a smile. Here I am. Throwing away the cigarette butt and walking into the elevator, when he arrived at the operation department and opened the office door, Ji Jing was looking at the documents in the room in a daze. At this moment, Han Qian wanted to run, but Ji Jing had already stood up and stepped forward to grab Han Qian's hand. He pointed his arms at the documents on the table without saying anything, just looking at Han Qian. Han Qian closed his eyes and sighed. You said you could just have a good rest at home. You come to the company to work and you don't want to deal with these documents. You are tormenting me. Ji Jing pushed Han Qian to sit on a chair, then took a glass of water, sat aside with a chair, looked at Han Qian with her hands on her chin, and said softly. My health is not affected at all. Song Jing is still working for 5 or 6 months, and I'm less than 2 months old. Have you had lunch? I'll order dumplings for you. Han Qian pinched Ji Jing's nose and smiled. After eating downstairs, I heard from Songjia that Mr. Yan asked for leave again. Why did she go? Ji Jing whispered. I guess you went to the hospital? I heard that. I also heard from Cai Qinghu that Mr. Yan is probably pregnant. If I hadn't gotten pregnant, she would have come to kill me. You have so many documents, Aunt Ji, you are really my little sweetheart. Ji Jing smiled naively. Han Qian was processing these documents until after get off work. When it was time to get off work, Han Qian stretched out, gently touched the sleepy Ji Jing, and said softly. It's time to get off work. Go home for dinner. Ji Jing nodded vaguely. The two of them walked downstairs and met Yan Qingqing, who was hurriedly walking to the elevator. The Empress seemed to be in a bad mood. Xiao Yangjia followed nervously behind her. Han Qian looked at Yan Qingqing walking slowly outside. Just as he was about to speak, Yan Qingqing said angrily, "What are you looking at? Kneel down." After the divorce, the ex-wife became a creditor. Author, Ahuan. Chapter 966. The Empress was a little angry at this moment. Han Qian and Ji Jing shut up obediently and watched Yan Qingqing walk into the elevator. Han Qian and Ji Jing looked at each other. They had the same idea and were waiting here. After about 10 minutes, Yan Qingqing and Xiao Yangjia came down. Looking at the two people sitting in the hall, Yan Qingqing frowned. "What are you two doing here? You're going to get off work overtime instead of getting off work. Damn, I'm so annoyed." Han Qian mustered up the courage and whispered, "What trouble are you in?" Yan Qingqing gritted her teeth and said, "The seafood processing plant exploded. I'm going to the hospital for a checkup this humming afternoon. All the officials in the factory seem to be idiots. Get out of here. I'm not in the mood to talk to you two." Han Qian stepped forward and stretched out his hand to pinch the back of Yan Qingqing's neck, then took Ji Jing's hand and walked out the door, putting the two women into Kui Li's car. "Send them both to my mother's house." Then he frowned at Yan Qingqing. "Go home and wait. You won't be without a man. Little Yangjia, why don't you go home or follow me to the factory? I'll go with you, or Mr. Yan will scold me again." Yan Qingqing glared at Xiao Yangjia, and then urged Kui Li to drive. When the car started, Han Qian saw that Ji Jing seemed to have sent a text message to Tong Yao. He got into Xiao Yangjia's car and called Gao Zixi. This guy was already at the scene. This sudden explosion made Han Qian a little worried. Is there someone still evil-minded and up to something? When they arrived at the place, Gao Jingchen trotted over and whispered. Overtime work in the factory caused the workers to be too tired, and the continuous operation of the machine caused it to overheat and explode. Now the possibility of human damage has been ruled out. Han Qian sighed. Yan Qingqing is pregnant and asked me to evict my family. The injured should be compensated as soon as possible. You hand over the money to their families with your own hands. It's too late to block the news. Try not to let outsiders know about overtime work. This matter is not necessary. Tell Lu Shenga and Qianling that they are both careless. Gao Xingyi nodded. The news has been blocked. 3 people died temporarily and more than 20 people were injured. Fortunately, it was dinner time, otherwise the explosion in the workshop would have been even more terrifying. How much was the loss? It's probably tens of millions. Walking into the extinguished workshop and looking at the mess in front of him, Han Qian sighed. When he walked out of the workshop, Cheng Jin and others had already arrived. Cheng Jin pointed at Han Qian's nose and cursed. Han Qian raised his hands. Surrender in one word. Cheng Jin's hands were trembling with anger. Binhai has not calmed down in the past 2 years. He finally thought it would be quiet. Suddenly something like this happened. Feng Lun can blame it on the city bureau. This explosion will require all departments to be involved. It's time to review. What are you glory going to do now? Han Qian didn't say anything, and Gao Jingchen continued. Active compensation and self-examination. Accept all punishments. With a good attitude, Cheng Jin left a few words and went to the hospital to visit the injured. Han Qian was also taken away by Cheng Jin. After getting in the car, Cheng Jin whispered. I can't scold them, I can only scold you. I have nowhere to vent my anger. Don't take what I say to heart. What's going on? Han Qian lowered his head and whispered. I don't know, I just returned to Binhai. Cheng Jin glared at Han Qian, knowing that this bastard knew it all. In the factory, Gao Jishi was holding a belt in his hand. Everyone in the factory, from the director to the squad leader, was kneeling in the office. Gao Jishi said with a livid face. I've told you before that if the factory doesn't have enough machines, just buy them, and if it doesn't have enough workers, just hire them. The factory over there is idle. Are you all deaf or blind? Whatever the chairman does to me tomorrow, I will do to you. Do you hear that? Submit your resignation letter and I will approve it after the punishment. The factory director raised his head and was about to speak when Gao Xingai's belt slapped him in the face and said coldly. You're waiting to go bankrupt. The factory director's eyes instantly turned gray. Gao Xingai looked out the window and murmured softly. Han Qian. Retire quickly, Bin Hai can't stand the trouble anymore. It was already 11 o'clock in the middle of the night when he left the hospital. Han Qian took a taxi back home tiredly. He got off the car in front of his house. Looking at the two guys squatting at the door, Han Qian waved to them to go home. No need to say more. It's guarded here. After walking into the courtyard, locking the door and looking at the girls in the living room, Han Qian took a deep breath and smiled. He walked forward and opened the door, shouting loudly. Girls, your emperor is back. Nuan turned his head, his big eyes filled with water mist, and then cried loudly. Han Qian was a little panicked and trotted forward and asked. What's wrong? Were you beaten? Nuan continued to cry, and Ji Jing, who was sitting aside, sighed. I accidentally got it on my arm when I was playing with electric mosquito repellent lotion. I guess it's burning now. This. Han Qian didn't know what to say, so he told Nuan to wash it with water, then turned to look at Yan Qingqing and whispered. Cheng Jin already knows about this matter. Gao Qingcheng is handling it. It is estimated that he will be fine this time. I think Cheng Jin's face is not good, and the amount should be quite large. Yan Qingqing sighed. What did the family say? It's definitely hard to say. Let's actively compensate. Not counting the insurance company's compensation, we will compensate the family an additional 200,000 yuan. How much can the insurance company compensate? 700,000 is the most. No matter what, it will be fine if the family members are allowed to go to the company and make trouble with the yeomanman. I have a headache, so I will go and rest first. Yan Qingqing returned to the room. Han Qian turned to look at Wen Nuan and said softly. Shall I give you a blowjob? Wen Nuan wiped her tears and returned to the room. Ji Jing asked Han Qian if he had dinner. Before Han Qian could answer, Tong Yao curled his lips and said. You pregnant woman, just take a good rest. Doesn't this show that you care about others? Ji Jing frowned at the nursery rhyme and said coldly. Nursery rhyme. You were waiting for me to give birth to the child. At that time, we would win or lose and fight for life or death. I also went to bed. Aunt Ji got up and walked into the east room. Tong Yao pouted at Ji Jing, then walked into the kitchen and brought out a bowl of rice. The food was all covered with rice. Han Qian squatted at the door with the bowl in hand. After taking 2 bites, he asked Tong Yao where he was. Is there any hot pepper, a little spicier? A bite of rice, a bite of chili. Han Qian was sweating profusely after eating, and Tanjeo squatted beside him without saying a word. When Han Qian finished eating, Tanjeo went to wash the dishes and told him to remember to wash his hands, otherwise he would end up like Nuan. After dinner, he had a cigarette, washed up and went to bed. As soon as he lay down, he felt a pain in his stomach. Han Qian knew it was from eating chili peppers. The crazy river water finally relieved after more than half an hour of tossing. But just as he was about to go to bed, the urge to pee came. After going back and forth like this, his sleepiness was gone. When he came out of the toilet for the 3rd time, Han Qian saw Yan Qingqing taking a can of beer from the refrigerator. She glanced at her stomach and then put the beer away. After going back, Han Qian spoke. You're just pregnant. It's okay to drink a little. Yan Qingqing sighed. I won't drink anymore. I'm just feeling a little irritable. Then Yan Qingqing took out a sausage and Han Qian said softly. Hungry. I'm not hungry, I'm just upset and want to eat. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. After the divorce, the ex-wife became a creditor. Author, A Huan. Chapter 967. If Yan Qingqing is not upset, then she is no different from a fool. The explosion caused tens of millions of losses, and all the machines in the workshop were burned down. In addition to the workers' compensation, these are not bad, mainly at the Yamen gate. She won't let this matter go easily, and she will definitely be scolded. Sitting on the threshold, Yan Qingqing leaned on Han Qian's shoulder and whispered. I'm so tired. I don't know what kind of test I will face tomorrow. The moment I heard the explosion in the factory, my first thought was to run away. I am such a failure. Han Qian put his arm around Yan Qingqing's shoulders and said softly. You are already very successful. You control glory and compete with the entire Binhai alone. My mother-in-law is a powerful girl. If I hadn't been obsessed with having children and not inspecting the factory, this kind of thing wouldn't have happened. Han Qian, am I being too willful? No. Don't be willful. You have done a very good job. Among the girls in the family, you are the one who works the hardest and is the best in business. No one's life will be smooth. You will collapse on this matter. Think about those 3 broken families. Their pillars of support have fallen, but isn't your pillar of support still here to comfort you? Yan Qingqing suddenly cried and choked with sobs. It was my negligence that caused them to be in trouble. It's all my fault. Han Qian sighed and smiled. It's not your fault, it's my fault. When I retire, nothing will happen to Binhai. Stop crying. I will handle these things tomorrow. You can play at home with peace of mind, with Nuan, and with Ji play quietly. Yan Qingqing raised her head and looked at Han Qian, choking. I have always thought that I have done many things right in the past 20 years. It wasn't until I met you that I realized that holding on to you was the only thing I did wrong. You can't say that. Before you met me, everything you did was just to meet me. My mother-in-law can't be wrong. The two of them looked at the sky until when Nuan asked angrily in the room whether Yan Qingqing was still alive. They separated. Yan Qingqing went back to the room to sleep, while Han Qian continued to run to the toilet. Han Qian no longer knew what time he went to bed. Breakfast was already prepared when I got up in the morning. To be honest, Han Qian really liked nursery rhymes. This is a true wife and mother. Of course only if she doesn't get sick. After dinner, he called Kui Li to come to his home to protect the safety of several girls. Han Qian drove to work and told Su Hongchang to bring the old Taoist priest to glory. 9:30 minutes. Su Hongchang and the old Taoist priest walked into the office together. At this time, Han Qian was handling the documents on the table wearing glasses and nodded to the two of them. At this time, little Yang Jia came in with tea and served them 2 teas. After about 20 minutes, Han Qian took off his glasses, stood up, stretched, and said softly. Old liar. I always feel a little weird, do you feel it? The old Taoist priest picked up the teacup and smiled. I told you that your destiny is too tough and you talk about metaphysics. Your mother's illness has something to do with you. Fortunately, you have met Wen Nuan, a soft-tempered girl with a soft heart and a weak destiny. But if you don't restrain yourself, you will rush into everything. At the front, your going to the capital is your last love affair. The girls and friends around you have been helping you share the punishment and pain. I guess you have felt it yourself. Every time you choose to retreat, things will get better. De-escalate, the further forward you go, the worse things get. Han Qian lit a cigarette and stood in front of the window, frowning. According to what you said, I will definitely not be able to survive if I don't retire. My suggestion is that you put down everything in your hands. This will be better for everyone. The girls around you will not be in trouble, and you won't be too tired. Can't this thing be broken? It can't be broken. I'm afraid that I will break it for you and take away my old life. Boy Han, you have no luck in wealth and no career in this life. You can do the math for yourself. Millions of dollars are in your hands. Have you passed? There seems to be no good end for those who stay, right? Han Qian lowered his head and thought for a while, and it seemed that this was really the case. When he was taking Li Dehai's shares, he met Go Depeo. Not to mention other things, he just got Cai King Hu's Cayenne and crashed it in the capital 2 days later. After returning to Binhai, Ji Jing, who doesn't fight or grab, actually wants this car. This is very wrong. Then after getting all the Lin family's possessions, Luo Shen could no longer have children, and her children had to live in the capital. Squatting on the ground with a headache, he said helplessly. Is there really nothing you can do? Can't I stop making money? Old liar, give me a trick. The old Taoist priest curled his lips and said. Nothing, you don't have this in your life. It's good for you to be alive now. Retire early. Everyone wants you to retire. Boy Han, there is a time in life, but there is no time in life. Don't force it. Su Hongchang said. Taoist master, can this transfer the cause and effect of my young master to me? After saying this, the old Taoist priest sneered. Your life is gone for the 1% that this kid is carrying on his shoulders. He only involved you once, and you almost lost your life, right? If there wasn't a little girl here at that time, your life he's gone long ago, and he still wants to help and resist? There is also a junior he left by his side who should be in jail. Didn't he also lose half his life? Now the little girl around him who has not suffered is the one with the weakest temper. Is Ji Jing calm? Han Qian whispered. There are also Yu's poems. When Nuan was arrested once, King Hu was threatened by Guda Pao, the family of nursery rhyme. Yan Qingqing's trouble this time, Lao Su was beaten by Kui Li was almost beaten to death by Zhang Shengli, Xiao Yang, Big Dog, Wu Sijuan, etc., are all this implicated by me. Su Hongchang whispered that it had nothing to do with the young master, and the old Taoist slapped Su Hongchang. It doesn't matter if you say it doesn't matter. It has a lot to do with him. The old monk in the temple is chanting sutras for you, Boy Han. Think about it yourself. Han Qian scratched his head irritably. Oh, it's not that I don't want to retire, I just feel that I still have a lot of things to do. In order to retire early, I am living one day at a time without resting for a minute. I will work hard and try to retire before getting married. When the time comes, Lao Su, I'll follow the young master and leave the rest to Kui Li. Su Hongchang was willing to be a loser. Han Qian sighed and stood up. At this time, the old Taoist priest spoke again. It would be good for you to get married early. You can be strong and soft at the same time, but let's forget it with this little girl named Yan. Her character is too strong. As soon as the old Taoist priest said that, Han Qian remembered what Yan Qingqing had asked him and Ji Jing to kneel down yesterday. He sighed helplessly and took out his cell phone to call his mother. Mom, when are you coming back? My Aunt Qian, and her Aunt Qinghu should set the date for the marriage certificate. After the divorce, the ex-wife became a creditor. Author, Ahuan. Chapter 968. I haven't seen my mother for a month. I opened my arms to give her a warm hug. In the end, I received several big slaps. Han Qian covered his shoulders in grievance and did not dare to talk back to his mother. When he saw the snickering old man, Han Qian said angrily, "Is there a father like you?" The old man chuckled. "Yes, I have." When Han Qian wanted to speak, Qian's mother pushed him into the room and sat on the sofa. Qian's mother said softly, "Have you thought about it? Xiao Hanqian, listen to me. You have been divorced once. Your father and I didn't tell you, but it doesn't mean that we don't care about you. What does Xianyuan say about you and Qinghu getting the certificate? You, what did the mother-in-law say?" Han Qian frowned and looked at his mother. After struggling for a long time, he still couldn't say 1, 2, 3, or 4. Qian's mother sighed and slapped Han Qian on the head. "You are about to turn 30. Your private life is so chaotic. I don't know if you have grown up or not. If you want to say that you have thought about it, I will pack up now and go to see Li Yelai with your Aunt Qian." Han Qian lowered his head and muttered softly, "Mom. This is not something I have thought too hard about. I have been forced to this point, so I can't just bite the bullet and not get married. Besides, your and my dad's impression of Qinghu is not is it good." After saying this, the old man chuckled. "What? If you have a good impression, you will bring her back to be your daughter-in-law. The ancestral grave of the old Han family is smoking and spreading." Han Qian gave the old man a thumbs up and whispered, "You can use words now. Okay, one of you doesn't have the heart to be a father, and the other doesn't have the heart to be a son. Old Han, pack up and go meet your in-laws to talk about the wedding with Wen Nuan." Listening to Qian's mother's words, the old man lowered his head and whispered softly, "What will I say? Let Han Qian go with me. If you don't know what to say, go have a drink. Han Qian will follow me later." The old man sighed. After going out, Su Hongchang drove. Han Qian and his mother sat in the back seat. Su Hongchang drove quietly. Qian's mother frowned and scolded Han Qian. "I know you are quite capable in Binhai. You are good at both black and white, but how can you find me 6 or 7 daughters-in-law in one breath? Don't talk about you. There are many people in the country who are more capable than you. Who is like you? Is this like this? Even if someone is with you, you are still sneaking around. How are you? I'm afraid that others won't know. This time I went back to my hometown to give you a gift. Many people asked about you. When my relatives saw me, they asked me how many daughters-in-law I have. Isn't it embarrassing?" Han Qian lowered his head and whispered, "Shame on you." Qian's mother said angrily, "I didn't talk about you before, I thought you could handle it well, but now it's interesting. Qing Qing and Jingjing's children can't tell whose child will be born first. Is it Qinghu who received the certificate? When Nuan held the wedding? Are you not afraid of being raped? People are watching to check what you have done." "I didn't do anything. I promise you. I have never killed anyone. Absolutely not. A small gift." Han Qian was speechless and hesitated for a long time before explaining in a low voice. "I was just afraid that someone would check on me, so I stayed in the capital for so long. If Lao Gu could protect me, I would be more than half safe, but the rest would be nothing. I didn't get 2 marriage certificates. Old madam, if it doesn't work out, the young master can change his nationality." Su Hongchang whispered to the young master. Han Qian sighed and whispered, "If you don't change your nationality, it's easy to transfer to another country, but it's very troublesome to transfer back." "Oh. That's it?" After saying this, my mother pinched her ears and said angrily in a low voice, "What you said is simple. We are just meeting Qinghu's parents now. If Li Yelai hurts me and Qianling, we both will have to laugh and endure it. What you said is simple. When Qingqing's belly gets bigger, Yan my parents came to me to ask for an explanation. Don't I still have to apologize? And Tong Tong, Xiaozi, by the way. And the foreign couple, You're going to piss me off and I'll forget it. Han Qian lowered his head and whispered. Whoever tells you something, I'll go find them and talk about life. This sentence was wrong. After receiving a few slaps, Han Qian shut up obediently. Qian's mother was so angry that she had a headache. Why are you like your father? You solve everything with your fists. How about we talk about being father-in-law? Go away, go on your own. Su Hongchang turns around. Mom, we have something to discuss. Aren't I joking with you? You see you are angry. Calm down, calm down. After coaxing his mother to sleep well and picking up Qianling, Han Qian had no choice but to go to the passenger seat. Qian's mother was nagging her all the way. The most common thing she said was why she didn't strangle this thing to death when she was born. Qianling kept laughing, and Han Qian could only lower his head and play with his mobile phone, not daring to say a word. It takes 3 hours to get to Beijing from Binhai, and almost the same to Shengjing. Arriving at the gate of Cai Qinghu's manor, Qianling couldn't help but sigh after getting off the car. How much money does this kid have? Qian's mother looked at the huge manor and said softly. Is this Qinghu's home? Han Qian scratched his head in embarrassment. At this time, PoortoRich came over with a group of maids and waitresses, bent slightly towards Han Qian and whispered softly. Welcome home, uncle. The servants of the Cai family behind him said in unison. Welcome home, uncle. Han Qian was even more embarrassed. He scratched his head and looked at PoortoRich, pointing at his mother and saying softly. My mother. PoortoRich turned around and saluted. Aunt. Then Han Qian pointed at Qianling and said. My mother too. The corners of PoortoRich's eyes twitched slightly and she whispered again. Hello, Auntie. Madam and Miss Li are already waiting for you. Madam originally wanted to come out to greet you, but she sprained her foot when she went out just now. Please forgive me. Walking into the gate of the manor, PoortoRich thoughtfully prepared a sightseeing car, drove it herself, and softly introduced the manor. When they arrived at this, it couldn't be said to be a villa, but to be precise, it was a mansion in a castle. Just as PoortoRich was about to speak, Cai Qinghu ran out and opened his arms. Calling her husband sweetly, Han Qian was afraid that the girl would fall, so he quickly stepped forward to hold Lady Cai in his arms. At this time, Qian's mother also stepped forward and said anxiously. Xiaohu, if you sprain your foot, don't run away. Let mom see which leg is injured. After saying that, he bent down and grabbed Cai Qinghu's floor-length skirt. Cai Qinghu looked at Qian's mother in a daze, tilted her head and said. Sprained feet? I don't have. Madam. Go in, it's not good to be outside. Cai Qinghu held Qian's mother on his left and right, and Qianling on his right hand. Although he said he didn't like Qianling, it was a good thing that someone came to propose marriage today. Han Qian followed and was about to enter. PoortoRich suddenly reached out and grabbed Han Qian's hand. Han Qian almost cried out because of the pain in his hair, but was forcefully dragged away by PoortoRich. Seeing Su Hongchang making an okay gesture, Han Qian had already thought about where to bury him. You came here empty-handed? PoortoRich frowned and Han Qian said outside. Huh? Empty-handed? Isn't this your first time getting married? It's your first time that your parents come to your house and you don't know how to bring anything with you. Although I have been married once, this proposal is also the first time for a young girl to get married. I never mentioned it. PoortoRich glared at Han Qian fiercely. I really didn't know my wife was so attracted to a slovenly man like you. Go ahead. Get your driver to come over. Han Qian left with questions in his mind. When he walked into the living room, Li Yalai's face was not very good. Qian's mother and Qianling were also a little embarrassed. It was also the first time for them to come to propose marriage. They scolded Han Qian for being too patronizing and forgot the gift thing. Li Yelai said calmly while holding tea. If you are here to visit today, I, Li Yelai, will warmly welcome you. But if you want to propose marriage, then let's not talk about it. Cai Qinghu became a little anxious and shouted in a low voice. And Li Yelai shouted angrily. Shut up. I'm still your elder, you have no right to speak here. Cai Qinghu opened his mouth, but still didn't speak. Li Yelai put down her teacup and said calmly. I don't know what you two are thinking. Even if you have never proposed marriage to your child, you come to the door empty-handed to propose marriage. There is no such rule since ancient times, right? Do you think that your noble son is too good, or do you look down on my Xiaohu? We the Cai family is not a small family. Qinghu's father and grandfather are both well-known figures in Shengjing. Although they left early, the name is still there. Our Cai family has retreated again and again. No wedding? We agreed. We, the Cai family, pretended not to see Han Qian's colorful flowers outside. After saying this, Li Yelai raised her head, her face was ashen, her glasses were about to burst into flames, she slapped her on the coffee table and said angrily. And you came here empty-handed today? Is it because the threshold of my Cai family is too low, or is it that our Qinghu family is higher than your Han family? You don't take Qinghu seriously. She is still my treasure. I can't get this certificate, forget it, our Cai family doesn't care about being your Han family's daughter-in-law. At this time, Qian'er's mother and Qianling were embarrassed and wanted to find a crack in the ground to crawl in. This was indeed their mistake. Qian'er's mother forced out a smile and whispered. In-laws, this rebellious son came back from the capital just now. I also came back to Binhai from my hometown. I came all the way before entering the door. Why don't you treat Qinghu as your treasure? The two children are about to receive the certificate. Han Qian can marry Qinghu is a blessing that I cultivated in my previous life. At this time, Qianling took out a card from her bag, presented it with both hands, and said with a smile. Guess, I don't need anything at home. Here is 20 million. It's the betrothal gift given by Han Qian to Qinghu. At this moment, Cai Qinghu was confused and she didn't understand these etiquette. As for Han Qian, he wanted to find a pillar to hit him to death. How the hell could you forget this? Li Yelai looked at the cards on the table and sneered. Qianling, I know you are rich. But my Cai family wants you to give me 3 melons and 2 dates. The neighbors who live here are either rich or noble. This kid Han Qian is very famous, and everyone in the province and the capital is staring at him. Every move, today you are here, walking into the courtyard empty-handed. How do you want outsiders to see our Cai family? How can we be humiliated like this without a man in the family? What I want is not money, what I want is not something, what I want it's an explanation and a face. After saying this, Li Yelai picked up the card on the table and threw it out, roaring angrily. Who are you using 20 million to humiliate? Where's Biro? I'll give you 200 million, and we don't have to talk anymore. I don't agree with this marriage. The cup in Cai Qinghu's hand fell to the ground. When he looked at Han Qian again, his eyes were filled with anger. At this moment, Han Qian was also stunned. He took a deep breath and knelt on the ground with a thud. Seeing this, Cai Qinghu quickly stood up. But Li Yelai held her hand. Sit down. Han Qian whispered. Auntie, it's really me today. Master. Wait for me. I can't carry so many things by myself, old Su. At this moment, Han Qian really wanted to kill Su Hongchang. What the hell had he done?